need to have your mud laid. You do the bowl float with it, you get it smooth, bring the cream to the top. It helps allow us to put a finish on it. We usually stamp, but if you're doing like a driveway or sometimes people will brush the finish. Usually when we lay the concrete, we mag it right away and we edge it as long as it's not too liquidy, because if you edge it, then the edge will just keep getting seeped in with the cream that's on the top. And then you throw your release, which is all the colored powder that you see us throw. So that way the stamp doesn't stick to the concrete. That allows it for us to pull it up easy. So you get our colored releases from most concrete suppliers. We always look at the color scheme of the house and the project. So this house happens to have more gray blue colors, so we don't want to throw browns because that would just clash. And then in other projects, if they have a more brown based atmosphere like in their house and stuff, then that's pretty much how we decide. When throwing color, you want to fluff it up in your hand, because if there's little clumps in it, then those clumps will go in the concrete and it'll leave little divots or like a rock was in there or something. So you really want to fluff it up, and people have described it as like a softball throw, like you throw underhand, you don't want to throw overhand, and it's a light, gentle toss onto the concrete. So when we're throwing release, you really want to cover the whole patio. If you don't, sometimes the mat will stick to it, so then you can either throw some release on your mat and then it'll be fine. But usually if you miss a spot, the mat keeps release on it, so if you set it down, it'll put color in that area. But if it's like a big section, then you just want to make sure that you're throwing more color so the mat doesn't stick. So you stamp the pad, you want to stamp everywhere. Again, I'm not pushing my hand in too hard because it's still pretty soft. And I don't want to leave like big divots in the concrete. And then when you pick up the mat, you pick two corners. Like you don't want to do these two corners because that doesn't make sense to lift it up. So you pick up these two corners and lift straight up, because if you don't, then the edges of the mat will dig into the concrete.
You see the entire outline kind of my square, which is not something I really want. So I'm going to take the little mat and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to kind of blend in the two sides where they meet.
But once it gets harder, then you can start patting it a little harder. You just pat the whole square. You also want to rotate your mat, because in the mat there's like cracks in it and you don't want the same crack like in the same direction each time, so it kind of moves it around. These are the cracks that I was talking about. So I just lifted it this way, so now I'm going to rotate the mat just once. If you have cracks in the same direction the whole way, like it's too uniform, so you don't want it's rocks. And rocks are more random, so it just helps make it look better. Don't want it too hard. We usually can go around the edges right after I throw color.
What you want to do to get the middle is you're going to take 2 stamp pads and 2 knee boards, and you're going to lay the first stamp pad out kind of on the edge, and then you're going to put your first knee board on. Then you're going to kneel on that knee board, grab your second mat, lay it out, and then you can pat around on that mat. And then when we're moving, you can take the other knee board, set it down on that mat, so you can transfer from one knee board to the next without putting too much divots or uneven pressure on the patio.
The key is you want 2 edges up when you're setting it down. Want me to move my mat? My mat is the stone looking finish, and the one that Al's using right now is like wood timber looking finish. And this is kind of a barn, country, western, not too much though theme project. And so we're trying something different to make it look more fun. We have a horseshoe. We're going to try to stamp it in the concrete like a horse was walking through it. So first you master the basics of stamping the concrete, and then you get to play with fun, cool ideas to add it and make it more fun for the kids. That's a good one. So the final step after our patio is all stamped, you let it set up for a few days, and then you rinse it off, you saw cut it, and then you seal it. Use Vexcon sealer. It's just a regular gloss. We don't use the semi or high gloss.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Yep.